My brother framed me and ruined my life until the truth came out. I always thought the worst kind of betrayal came from strangers. People on the street, a coworker you barely know, maybe a one-time friend who drifted into something bitter. But when it comes from your own blood, your brother, it doesn't just hurt. It rearranges something in you, breaks something so deep inside your chest you don't even realize how much damage it caused until years later. I'm 29 now. I've lived a life most people wouldn't believe if I told them. I've sat in jail for a crime I didn't commit. I've been spat on by strangers, written off by employers, erased by people I thought loved me. All because of one man, my brother, Drew. And this isn't one of those stories where I pretend we were close once. We weren't. We were competitive from day one. Drew was older by 2 years, louder, stronger, more charming. He knew how to twist a smile into a weapon, how to lie without blinking. He was the golden child, and I was the other one, the one who read too much, who asked too many questions, who didn't quite belong. Still, I thought that meant we were just different. I didn't think he hated me, not until I got the internship. That was where everything started. I was 22, fresh out of college, barely scraping rent in a shared apartment, working overnight shifts at a grocery store just to survive. Then I landed an internship at a mid-sized software company. Nothing huge, but it was mine. Something real. I remember calling my parents, voice shaking from excitement, telling them how maybe, just maybe, I could finally build something. Drew had been working a job in finance, some fast-track banking firm, big money, suits and elevators and words like liquidity. But he hated it. He said so constantly. He wanted something creative. He wanted freedom, but he didn't want to start over. When he found out about the internship, he didn't congratulate me. He laughed. You? At a tech company? He said. Come on, you barely passed high school calculus. I shrugged it off. Tried not to let it get under my skin. But it did. Still, I showed up. I worked. I learned. Within months, they offered me a full-time position. 6 months after that, I was on track for a junior developer role. It was the first time in my life I felt like I was actually good at something. That's when Drew started calling more. At first, I thought he wanted to reconnect. Maybe he was bored. Maybe he missed me. But no, he wanted in. He started asking questions. About my company, my manager, the product pipeline. He told me he was thinking about pivoting to tech. Asked if I could introduce him around. I said I'd try. Biggest mistake of my life. The day it all fell apart, I remember waking up early. I had a presentation that morning, a pitch to help redesign part of our user interface. It was my first big responsibility. I stayed up till 2 a.m. perfecting it. I walked into the office with coffee, sat down, opened my laptop, and froze. My screen was black. My password wasn't working. 10 minutes later, 2 people from HR and 1 guy from security were standing by my desk. They asked me to come with them. I thought it was a mistake. It wasn't. There had been a breach. Someone had accessed internal documents, proprietary designs, user data, all kinds of things under NDA. The logs showed my account had been used. From my IP. During hours I was home. I tried to explain. Swore I never touched that stuff. Asked them to check for malware, anything. They said they would investigate. But 2 days later, they handed me a termination letter. Then the police got involved. And then everything spiraled. I was arrested in my apartment, cuffed in front of my roommate. My name was printed in the paper, listed under ongoing corporate espionage investigation. I didn't even know what that meant. I spent 3 nights in county jail before my parents bailed me out, silent, ashamed, refusing to meet my eyes. Drew didn't show up. Not at court. Not at home. Not in the hospital when I had a panic attack so bad I thought I was having a heart attack. He just disappeared. And I didn't know it yet. But he was the one who'd set the whole thing up. For months, I lived like a ghost. My record wasn't officially ruined. Not yet. But no company wanted to touch me. Even jobs that had nothing to do with tech slammed the door as soon as they saw my name in a background check. My savings were gone. My reputation, what little of it I had, was mud. Former classmates unfollowed me. Even people I hadn't spoken to in years started blocking me, like the charges were contagious. I applied to everything. Warehouse shifts, janitorial jobs, rideshare apps. Anything. Eventually, I landed a job stocking shelves at a discount store on the edge of town. Graveyard shift. $12.25 an hour. No questions asked. I didn't tell people my story anymore. Not because I was hiding it, but because no one believed it. Except her. Camille. We'd met the summer before it all went to hell. She was a barista at the cafe near my apartment. Witty, sharp-tongued, always scribbling poetry in the margins of napkins. We had a few coffees, a few jokes, a few long walks. Then I got caught up in my job, and she faded out like background noise. Until she walked into that discount store one night with headphones in, and froze when she saw me hauling boxes behind the register. I don't know what made me tell her everything. I just did. All of it. The setup, the arrest, the silence, the shame. I expected her to pull away. She didn't. Instead, she said, "That doesn't add up." And then, "Do you still have your laptop?" I did. It had been returned to me after the company wiped it. But there wasn't anything on it anymore, not visibly. Still, Camille had a cousin who worked in cybersecurity. She offered to bring it to him. I handed it over the next day. 3 weeks passed. I figured nothing would come of it. I was used to disappointment by then. Used to dead ends. Then Camille texted me. "You need to see this." Her cousin had recovered several deleted temp files, system logs, cache tokens, and most importantly, remote login attempts tied to a second device. The device didn't belong to me. It was registered under an account linked to Drew's name. Not his main email, but a secondary one attached to a private GitHub repo, where, conveniently, Camille's cousin also found copies of some of the same design documents I'd supposedly leaked. It wasn't a smoking gun. Not yet. But it was a spark. I took it to a public defender. He barely glanced at the files. Said the case was old news. Told me it wouldn't hold up in court unless I had proof that Drew accessed those files intentionally. And even then, good luck convincing anyone to reopen a closed internal investigation without new charges filed. I almost gave up. But Camille didn't. She sat with me at diners until 3 a.m., reading old emails between me and Drew, asking questions, cross-referencing timestamps, looking for patterns. One night, we noticed something odd. Every time my account had been logged into during the breach window, Drew had texted me a distraction. "Call me when you get a sec. You okay? I had a weird dream about you last night. Want to grab coffee tomorrow?" Always casual, but always timed just before someone accessed my profile. It wasn't random. It was coordination. He wanted to make sure I was looking away. That was when I snapped. I called him. After almost a year of no contact. When he picked up, his voice didn't even flicker. Like nothing had happened. Like we were catching up after a long trip. "Hey little bro," he said. "Didn't expect to hear from you." "I know what you did," I said. Silence. Then, chuckle. Not nervous. Confident. "You sure you want to go there? You set me up. You used my credentials. You stole the files. I have proof." "Do you?" he said. "Or do you just have fragments that'll get laughed out of a courtroom?" He was right. But he wasn't smart enough to stop talking. "You think anyone's gonna believe a disgraced dropout with a grocery cart and a record?" he went on. "You're done. I won. Why dig it back up?" He didn't realize I had Camille recording the call. It still wasn't enough. Not legally. But it was something. We took it to a journalist, a freelancer Camille knew through her writing circles. She agreed to write a piece. Nothing flashy. Just a blog post. But she had reach. And she embedded everything. The documents, the file logs, even a snippet of the call. She didn't say Drew's name directly. Just enough for people to know. And they did. Because within days, Drew was outed. People at his company started asking questions. Former coworkers. Old classmates. One of them forwarded the article to Drew's employer. He was placed on leave pending review. 2 weeks later, he was terminated for violating his own firm's ethics code. Not for framing me, but for unauthorized data use. And then I got a call. From the same HR manager who fired me 2 years earlier. They wanted to revisit my case. I didn't know how to feel when they asked me to come back. The same HR rep who'd escorted me out of the building 2 years ago now wanted to schedule a clarifying discussion. I remember staring at the email for 10 straight minutes, hands trembling, rereading the words as if they were in another language. It felt like bait, like a trap, like someone was messing with me just to twist the knife. Camille told me I didn't owe them anything, but I went anyway, not because I wanted their forgiveness, but because I wanted to look them in the eyes when they realized what they'd done. I showed up in a thrifted blazer and borrowed shoes. Sat in a conference room I'd once pitched ideas in. It looked smaller than I remembered. The HR rep, Allison, smiled like we were old friends, and the director of engineering, who I'd once admired from afar, didn't meet my gaze. They asked me to explain my side. So I told them everything. The emails, the device ID, the recovered files, the phone call, the blog post that had gone viral within our industry, making enough quiet waves that even investors started asking questions. Camille had sent them a neat PDF with footnotes and highlights. I passed it across the table like a weapon. When I was done, no one said anything for a long time. Then the director finally looked up and said, "We owe you an apology." I didn't cry. Not there. Not in that room. But something cracked inside my chest. Like someone had finally acknowledged that I existed. That I hadn't just been some disposable name in a report. They didn't offer me my job back. But they did offer something else. A settlement. It wasn't massive. Not enough to buy a mansion or disappear into the hills. But it was more than I'd ever had in my bank account. More than enough to pay off debt, get therapy, move out of the shared apartment that still smelled like mold and regret. I took it. And then I called a lawyer. With that settlement and Camille's help, we filed a formal civil case against Drew. Not criminal, not yet, but civil defamation and damages. We didn't expect to win. Just exposure. Discovery rights. A chance to get more. And boy did we. During discovery, we got access to his old work laptop, the one he'd tried to wipe after being fired. But he wasn't careful enough. There were traces of document transfer logs. Emails that referenced my brother's files to people at another company. He tried to sell the proprietary designs he stole from me. That was the turning point. Because once that came out, they filed charges. The software company I once interned for contacted the DA directly. They wanted to pursue theft of intellectual property and malicious impersonation. Drew was arrested 2 weeks later. No warning. No theatrics. Just a knock at his door and a polite but firm pair of officers who read him his rights while his neighbors watched from behind curtains. The media didn't go wild. This wasn't national news. But the tech blogs, the forums, Reddit, they lit up. Finance bro steals code from own sibling, ruins his life, gets destroyed in court. People were posting side-by-sides of his Instagram thirst traps and court transcripts. Someone found his old Reddit account and unearthed posts where he bragged about teaching his lazy brother how to survive in the real world. The arrogance aged like milk. Trial was still months away, but the narrative had flipped. And I, for once, had power. Camille and I got our own apartment. Tiny, crooked floors, stubborn plumbing, but it was ours. I went back to school part-time to finish my degree, funded entirely by the settlement. And when I wasn't studying, I helped Camille build a blog dedicated to whistleblowers and wrongfully accused professionals. We called it Second Bite, and the first article was mine. The court date was set for October. It was surreal seeing Drew again, not at a family barbecue or in a faded photo, but seated at a defendant's table in a charcoal suit that looked 2 sizes too big, eyes hollow, jaw tight. For a second, I didn't even recognize him. He looked smaller, like someone had drained the charisma right out of his skin. He didn't look at me once. His lawyer was slick, polished, and visibly annoyed to be representing someone like Drew. Our lawyer, older, quieter, meaner, smiled the entire time. She told me before opening statements, "We don't need to make him look bad. We just need to show what he did. He'll bury himself." She was right. The prosecution started with a digital forensics expert who walked the jury through the file transfers. Drew's name came up within 10 minutes. Not just in metadata, but in actual email headers, some recovered from cloud backups he forgot to scrub. He'd labeled one folder JB_originals, my initials, like he was proud of it. They even found Venmo logs, small, untraceable payments from a third-party buyer. Nothing huge, but enough to raise suspicion. Enough to paint a picture of someone not just stealing data, but profiting off it. And when they played the phone call, the one Camille recorded, where Drew mocked me, laughed at my downfall, admitted he won, you could feel the jury shift in their seats. One woman looked like she wanted to vomit. Drew's defense was paper thin. He tried to claim I gave him the files, that I wanted him to shop them around to help me get a better job, that I was in on it until things went south. But there were no emails, no texts, no evidence, just his word. And nobody in that courtroom believed it. By the third day, the press was trickling in. Not CNN or anything, but tech reporters, bloggers, one person from an online startup law journal. They posted screenshots of the evidence, shared timelines, talked about the shocking ease with which a family member can sabotage a career. One article called it digital fratricide. I wish I was kidding. Drew tried to plead down on day 5. They offered a reduced sentence if he cooperated, turned over everything, admitted the full scope of what he did, and paid restitution. He refused, said he wouldn't admit to a version of the truth that never existed. So the trial went to closing arguments, and we won. The jury deliberated for just under 3 hours. Drew was found liable for malicious impersonation, corporate data theft, and willful defamation. The court ordered him to pay $380,000 in restitution, not including legal fees and damages for emotional distress, which, I assure you, were very well documented. He didn't have the money, of course, but that wasn't the point. The point was that a judge looked at me and said, "You were wronged, and now the law sees it too." That night, I didn't go out drinking. I didn't throw a party. I went home, sat in the dark, and let the silence wash over me. And for the first time in years, I slept without waking up in a sweat. The trial was over. The verdict was public. But Drew wasn't done making noise. 2 weeks after the ruling, a burner account popped up on X, formerly Twitter. It posted screenshots of my old arrest record, out-of-context DMs, and twisted fragments of our history. It claimed I'd ruined an innocent man's life over jealousy, that I'd weaponized the court system for revenge. The handle? @FamilyTruths94. It didn't take long to figure out who it was. He wasn't smart enough to mask the IP address. Camille's cousin traced it in under 24 hours. I sent the information to my lawyer. Within 3 days, a gag order was placed on Drew, legally barring him from contacting, posting about, or interacting with me in any public space. When he violated it, which he did twice, it cost him more in fines. Eventually, he just stopped. Not because he accepted it, but because there was nothing left to burn. His job offers dried up. Every firm that once respected him blacklisted him. His LinkedIn became a ghost town. Former colleagues deleted their endorsements. At one point, he tried to pivot to crypto, launched a consulting service for restoring online reputations. It flopped within weeks. Someone posted screenshots of his court verdicts underneath every ad he ran. Then came the family fallout. My parents, the ones who had stood silent during my arrest, tried to mediate after the case. "We're still a family," my mother said. "You boys need to work this out." I stared at her for a full minute. "You didn't come to the trial," I said. "It was complicated. You didn't visit me in jail. We didn't know what to believe. You let him destroy me. And now that he's falling apart, now you want to play peacemaker?" She didn't respond. My father emailed me 2 months later. One sentence. "You got your pound of flesh. Now let it go." I blocked the address. They haven't tried since. Camille and I moved again, into a small rental house with wood paneling, creaky steps, and a backyard full of wild ivy. We built shelves together. Got a second-hand dog who hates thunderstorms but loves banana peels. Named him Rusty. I finished my degree. I started freelancing again, cautiously, quietly. Some small coding projects. Some UX cleanup gigs. Then one day, an old contact from my internship messaged me out of nowhere. "Are you still open to working in tech?" I froze. Then I said yes. It wasn't a major company, but it was honest work. Good work. The kind of place where my story wasn't a liability, but a lesson. I joined as a developer. 6 months later, I was leading a project. People knew what had happened. They didn't treat me like a headline. They treated me like someone who survived something unthinkable and came out the other side with clarity, fire, and code that worked. Camille's blog, Second Bite, went from 200 subscribers to 20,000 in a year. People wrote in from everywhere. Other whistleblowers, wrongfully accused employees, tech workers with NDAs too heavy to carry. We gave them templates, resources, voice. We gave them something I never had, belief. And the funny thing is, I stopped caring about Drew. Not because he didn't matter, but because I outgrew him. He became part of the origin story. A name in a courtroom transcript. A bitter, hollow warning about what it looks like when someone confuses success with sabotage. I don't forgive him, but I'm not afraid of him anymore. And sometimes, that's more powerful than forgiveness. A few weeks ago, I walked into a coffee shop near our new house. Different city, different coast. The barista looked up, did a double take, and said, "Wait, are you that guy from the blog post?" I tensed. Then she smiled. "You're the one who didn't give up." I laughed, nodded, said, "Yeah, that's me." And I ordered a black coffee, hot, quiet mine.